What's going on, guys? It's Brandon back here again. And yes, today we do have a double upload day. We had the Brandon Hagel trade video earlier, and now we're going to be doing a video on where I think some Blackhawks players will end up after the trade deadline. I'm leaving for vacation on Tuesday, which is the day after the deadline, so I will not be able to make as many videos as I usually do. I might have to postpone them till after my vacation, and so I want to get this out before the trade deadline without question because, as you see, I was going to do Hagel was going to be one of those, and he's already been moved, so I'm already behind on that. So this video will be shorter because there's not as many names now. The names I want to get to of which teams I think can or might pick up some of these players I'm about to mention from the Hawks. There's going to be I think about 3-4 players. If I think of any more, we'll extend the video. But to start it off, we'll go with the big one. Will Marc-Andre Fleury move? And which teams will he might go to? So, got a marker here, and we're going to put a check mark next to any team that could realistically go for Fleury. That's, without question, Chicago. He might stick with Chicago. He's already expressed that he likes Chicago, but he doesn't really need the championships. He might just stay here and just stay at the trade deadline, which I think would be a loss for Chicago after they gained him for literally nothing. But it's been great as the time as a Blackhawk, but I think for the rebuild to accelerate, as the Hagel trade did earlier, they need picks. And Fleury, you could get a first-round pick for Fleury. So Blackhawks, definitely, he could just stay. He might just not want to move because it's going to be his choice. Like Drew is in Philly, he's pretty much going to Florida at this point. So, yeah. Another team that I think, under the radar, but I think possibly, Nashville. They have UC Saros. They also have plenty of cap space, and they also have David Riddick, who's not played great in Nashville. He hasn't started too many games as well, so that's also part of it. But UC Saros has kind of stole the show, and if they could have a tandem of Fleury and Saros in the playoffs, that might win all of goaltending for any team. Would Fleury accept a trade to Nashville, though? That's a great question. It's not too far from Chicago, but still, it's moving his family. I feel like if it was up moving into Canada, that'd be a bigger issue. Since it's Nashville, you never know. Being apart from your family is especially hard, and Fleury, he's 37. Again, he doesn't really need too much. Other teams, no. Colorado, no. They have Kemper and Franco. St. Louis, no. They have Husso and Binnington. Minnesota, maybe. Minnesota doesn't have a lot of cap space, but I'm gonna give them a check mark anyway because Talbot and Kakinen have not played the best recently. Talbot was in the All-Star game; his numbers have dipped since then. We also have Kakinen, who is probably the future of this team. But if Minnesota needs to go on a run this year, as this is the year before their huge amounts of buyout penalty comes out from the Parise and Suter contracts, so it makes sense for Minnesota to want to go for it. I think that's all of the teams in the Central because Dallas has Ottinger and Holtby if need be. Jets aren't in the playoffs. Coyotes aren't in the playoffs. Now we can pretty much eliminate all of these 4 teams as well as all of these 4 teams. Any non-playoff teams are probably not going to be accepted. However, I include Vancouver in the playoff teams, but they don't need a goalie. They have Demko. Anaheim is basically out of it, and they have John Gibson, so they don't need it. San Jose, they're not probably going to be in the playoffs, so I'm going to leave them out of it. Vegas, I'll put a check mark. He already said he doesn't really want to go back to Vegas after the way they treated him on the way out. Vegas desperately needs goaltending, but there was no way they would have been able to get Jack Eichel if they had it traded Fleury. So, and with Leonard out, with Brossoit not being great, Thompson's been better than Brossoit probably, but it's a check mark only because the idea has been thrown out there, and it would be a reasonable decision for him to come back to Vegas, but after just his quick and abrupt exit, that shocked the world, basically. It's kind of not meant to be. Edmonton, checkmark without question, because they don't really have goaltending. Right now, Stuart Skinner might be their starter when it comes playoff time. Koskinen, Smith is injured. They have Koskinen. He's been up and down. And this team doesn't really have consistent goaltending, and it's been kind of the reason they've been falling in and out of the playoffs. And good thing, lucky for them, Vegas lost a bunch. They were able to climb back up into the 3rd spot in the division. So Edmonton, another team. So that's 5 teams out west because Calgary has Markstrom, and they don't really have cap space with, and I'm pretty sure they're fine with Vladar as the backup. Unless Markstrom gets injured, they should be fine. LA, interesting one. They have Peterson, they have Quick. I don't think goaltending is where they're going to be looking. They're going to be looking for more of their offense and defense. Goaltending is going to be something that grows over time in LA, I have a feeling. And moving on to the eastern side of things, Florida, Bobrovsky and Knight. Tampa, Vasilevsky. Toronto, yes. They talked on the Steve Dangle podcast about possibly a Jack Campbell or Peter Mrazek or something like that, a swap with Fleury to get some, because they don't have cap space really. With the Muzzin contract they don't, but they still want to get some stuff in from the trade deadline. Like they said they wanted a right defenseman and a goalie if that was possible. And they also wouldn't mind a forward, but they can't get all 3 with the LTIR space created from the Jake Muzzin injury. So do I think Fleury will go to Toronto? It's in Canada, so probably not. Would I be surprised if he did? Not necessarily. I'd be heartbroken because Toronto's pain is kind of hilarious to me. But that's not the point here. So yeah, Toronto, another Canadian team on the block. I don't really think he'll go to these 3 teams without question. Nashville is probably a most likely not. Minnesota, Chicago honestly looks like the best bet out of all those teams. Until you move farther down. Boston, they have Swayman and Allmark, they're fine. Carolina, no. They have Anderson and Ronta, they're fine with that. Rangers, they have Shesterkin. He's been great. They have Gorgiev if they need be, but he's not performed well. But I think Shesterkin will steal the show. Pittsburgh, yes. Washington, yes. That's ironic. Washington, are they comfortable with Samsonov or Vanacek being in the net? They've been up and down this season. Samsonov has seemed to have been regressing. Vanacek's seems to be playing better. So that's interesting. But Pittsburgh, they have DeSmith. Are they comfortable with DeSmith as the backup? Jari's had a bounce-back year. He's looking for a bounce-back performance in the playoffs. But so what the Pittsburgh will do there, that'll be interesting to see as well, if they'll just keep DeSmith. I think it's perfectly fine for both Pittsburgh and Washington. But those are the teams that I can see Fleury going to as of right now. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 teams on the board. That's 1/4 of the teams in the league. They're currently in Chicago, and I am counting that one. 3 in the East, 5 in the West. And yeah, I'm going to pause right here, and I'm going to reset the board so we get to our next player. All right, the next player we have, Calvin DeHaan. DeHaan is on an expiring contract like Fleury, and some teams have expressed interest in them. One being the Toronto Maple Leafs. They don't really need a left-hand defenseman, and they've kind of just can they afford it? That's the question. $4.5 million cap hit, and it's gonna be. I don't think he'll go to Toronto, but that's just one team that if they needed someone who can play defensively, that would be a good person to have. And I wouldn't mind the move either. See if they can get a third and a fourth for him. I'd be fine with that. And if at best a second, and maybe a decent fourth line player, I wouldn't mind that either. Other teams. Now let me look at the board. St. Louis is pretty solid on defense. Minnesota, again, they're pretty solid on defense. Nashville, they have the cap space. That's an interesting one, Nashville. I'll think about it in my head. Buffalo did say they were going to be buyers at the deadline, and they have the cap space to do it. And this might wait to free agency because he'll be a free agent at the end of the year. But Buffalo might express some interest, and I'll put a check mark by them. There we go. Buffalo did say they want to be buyers. You can't be sellers forever like Buffalo's been the past 10 years. But that's going to be interesting to see. Buffalo is a maybe in my eyes. Other teams that looking for defense. He used to be in Carolina. You don't think he'd go back. Colorado, no cap space. A lot of these would require creativity and movement. So DeHaan on the move would be interesting. Kings, they essentially have Edler, who's like DeHaan, but more useful offensively. Edmonton has no cap space. Calgary has no cap space. Vegas has no cap space. Common theme with the Pacific Division, except for LA, who's actually got cap space. I might hold it out there because I can't really see any other. Maybe the Rangers. Should I mark the Rangers? I'll mark the Rangers. I can see DeHaan going to the Rangers. Rangers have cap space. They could afford him. And I think that's where I'm going to leave it for those three. Toronto, Buffalo, and the Rangers. So 2 of those in New York, 1 in Toronto. Will he move? Yeah. I also got to put the check mark in Chicago because he might just stick it out to the end of the year and go into unrestricted free agency. I wouldn't be entirely surprised. The markers are not showing up on the camera, and that's making me very angry. Does that look better? It does look slightly bit better. So, those are the 4 teams I have here. And currently I have one more player of mine that I'd like to discuss, so we'll go over that. I'm going to reset the board, and we'll come back to that when it's ready. Alrighty, we're back quite shortly after. And the final one I want to get to, as I can think of in my head right now, is Patrick Kane. There have been rumors that he might be going, and the movement of Hagel kind of makes me curious if they really are going to do the complete teardown. Taze, I think they'll wait out to the end of his contract. No one's going to accept Taze's contract at $10.5 million, so he'll probably ride out till next year. And then Kane, his contract goes until the same year as Taze does, but it's a question whether do the Hawks want to tear it down now and go for a high pick in the next draft, because now they have 2 first-round picks in the next draft after the Hagel trade. So if they tank, are they going to go for the try and tank? Wouldn't be surprised if that happened. They're going to keep DeBrincat and Seth Jones. Those are the 2 that they're going to keep, no question. DeBrincat is their future star. He already is their star. And Seth Jones is starts an 8-year deal next year. So he's going to have 9 years in Chicago unless he's moved at the end of one of those. So, Patrick Kane, of course, without question, he can stay in Chicago. So I'll mark that. Other teams that expressed interest: Colorado. Wouldn't be a bad decision if you went to Colorado. That top 6 would be the best top 6 I think in the league, with McKinnon, Rantanen, Landeskog, Kadri, Kane, and you could slot someone in there. I'm trying to think of Colorado's side right now, and I can't do it. But you can just see already how amazing those top 2 lines would be, and going into a playoff series would be maybe quite impossible. McKinnon and Kane on the same line would be incredible to watch. It'd be like McDavid and Draisaitl, honestly, except maybe a little more skill. I want to say Kane has the experience, a little more experience, definitely, without question. Another one that will probably not happen, but it would be maybe one day, as Kane is from Buffalo. I will put a check mark next to Buffalo, and I'll also put a check mark next to the Rangers, as the Rangers also expressed interest in Patrick Kane. Do I think he will go to Buffalo this year? No. Do I think at some point in his career, if he does leave Chicago, he will go to Buffalo? Yes and no. After what happened in 2016, kind of probably lessened his liking of the city a bit, but I'm sure if he got to go home and play for maybe a year, or went on a playoff run with Buffalo, imagine that ending to Patrick Kane's career. He's old, but he's still performing. And he says, he's got a contract. He gets a 1-year deal from Buffalo. Is let's win this cup. Let's say Buffalo's a juggernaut, and how old's Kane's 33. Let's say in 6-7 years, Buffalo is a juggernaut. I wouldn't be surprised if he went to Buffalo and said, I'm going to try to do this for Buffalo. Rangers make sense. They got cap space. Kane and Panarin have excellent chemistry when they were in Chicago together in 2016 and 2017. So that would be another nice boost. Other teams that can really afford Kane or do anything with him, I don't see any. And that makes me curious on, what do you guys think? I think that's going to be it, honestly. So what do you guys think about possible movements on the Blackhawks roster? There's obviously ones I can count out, like Strome, Kubalik, possibly. Strome is a maybe. Doc, I don't think he'll move, but there's a chance if they really want to tear the entire thing down. If Doc's too young, I think he's still 20 years old. He could still become a star. He has time. It could just be a down year. Any other pieces, teams have expressed interest in Murphy, yeah, and leave your thoughts down below if whether or not you think there are going to be other movements. There probably is going to be at least one unexpected one. There usually is every year. Yeah, I'm trying to think of one that happened last year, but I couldn't at this time. If I had some time, maybe I would. But yeah, tell me what you thought down below, what I'm thinking about this, and I will see you guys in the next video. We have a game tomorrow at 1 p.m. against Minnesota, in Minnesota, so BFR shall be coming on Sunday. But yeah, that's all I have for you guys today, and I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.